Guru Nation, welcome back to another episode of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. Yet another quarantine episode. I'm getting used to this, Katie. It's good quarantine. Like I'm getting a lot of phone calls, interviews, getting a lot of work done from home, playing some Nintendo, just like working out. I don't know. Things seem to be like good right now, but I do want to get out and things get back to normal because a lot of people like you got furloughed, but then you have the like other side of that. Within the same month, you became a CRA. So, can you explain what happened? Like, first of all, who are you and like what's your background?
Okay, so my name's Katie. I've been a clinical research coordinator for about 8 years in South Carolina, in Charleston. And I have honestly been applying for CRA positions for probably pretty steady for 2 years straight. And the first time I got two interviews, and it was within the last 3 weeks for the first time ever. So, and I got laid off on April 2nd.
So,
and
how long
my
were you a coordinator? Like, let's give the viewers some context.
Okay, so I was a research program assistant at Medical University of South Carolina for about 3 years. So I did more like telehealth, mobile.
Oh, perfect.
I did and I did informed consent and stuff, but I didn't do all of the like phlebotomy and all that kind of stuff. So then I moved to clinical research at a different site, and then worked there on all different types of therapeutic areas, from neurology to women's health, all different kinds of stuff. And then I got an opportunity at my most recent job in rheumatology, and then I worked there for a little over 2 years. And then my site had to permanently downsize due to COVID-19. So I was shocked and just laid off on April 2nd. So yeah,
Wow.
it's
And then what
crazy.
happened between April 2nd and when you got the new job offer to be a CRA? Like, what did you do? Because most people, when they get this news, like they retreat inward and they just like don't do anything and they're freaking out, right? Which is understandable. I mean, it's your job. Uh, but like, what did you do? Explain how you went from that to getting hired as a CRA with no CRA experience.
Yeah, and it's crazy. So I retreated and did the whole feel sorry for myself for about 24 to 48 hours. I let myself just be miserable. And
Okay.
then and then I said I wasn't going to do this anymore. I've listened to your podcast. I think I heard about you about 2 or 3 months ago. I want to give a shout out to Crystal Visconti.
Thank you,
She's a
Crystal.
CRA.
She's an
Yeah,
amazing friend of yours.
she is. She loves you, and she
Okay.
told me to start watching and listening to your podcast. So I did. So that was kind of what I would do when I would like piddle around and just kind of try and figure out what I was going to do during this unemployment time. So the first person that I actually reached out to, which I haven't told you, is Roberta Perella. I reached out to
Ah,
her.
yes, I interviewed her. Yep, she's
Yeah,
amazing.
who you interviewed. Yeah. And I remember her giving a lot of good advice for CRAs, because she's a line manager, right?
That's
CRA
right.
line,
That's right.
and saying that one of the biggest qualities that they like are self learners and people who adapt well to change and stuff. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to somehow figure out how to be a CRA because I've got to do this. So then I listened to Ashley, who you interviewed, and she was just like amazing.
Shout out to
Um,
Ashley Margo. She is
yeah,
amazing. She
she really
continues
was.
to blow me away every interview I have with her.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing. So I listened to the whole entire video of how step to step of how to do your resume, make it, concise, but, just really visible to recruiters. I mean, I completely changed. It went from like 3.5 pages to 2 pages. Um, I changed the order. I changed everything I even talked about. She taught me how to change my LinkedIn around, which I never even thought people cared about that kind of stuff.
They
I like
do.
changed my background picture, try to be all cool, like the DNA thing. I don't know. It was just like the smallest things that you never really think about. And
So you
she,
went like all in on Ashley's strategy, like
yeah,
everything she suggested. Okay.
I just became Ashley Jr. So I just took on the whole personal branding that she did, and I updated like with my LinkedIn with the core competencies. Like I don't know, I just changed everything around. And then another good advice that she gave was how to track down recruiters on LinkedIn. So that was another thing I started to do, was reach out to different companies that I was interested in, and then look under my state, and then kind of reach out to them and kind of like, I don't know, I hate to say this, but try and think of more things to say instead of like, hi, will you look at my resume?
Right.
Um,
Because
so,
everyone does that.
right, exactly. And then I feel like sometimes recruiters, if you send that to them a couple times, they're just not going to answer. But if you literally do it like every day, they finally are like, okay, this girl's not going to leave me alone.
So what
So,
strategy did you do? You did it every day, or you did like changed up your approach and say, hey, like, how can I help you? Or like, what did you do?
well, at first, because another thing Ashley said was every person you connect with, you should just like ask them how they're doing. So sometimes I would just like comment and say thanks for the connection or whatever, and then I would realize they were a recruiter. So then I would slip in just information I could find like about myself or about the specific company or why I was interested, or and then if they didn't respond, then like the next day I'd be like, well, I hope you're having a good day. Thanks again. And then most of the time they'd respond, oh, hey, sorry, I didn't get your message. And then, so that was kind of cool.
Even though
So I
they
kind
did, but you know what? Like, people like,
of grew
I guess
up.
that's a good point. Like, when you're nice, because you seem like a genuinely nice person, I think that translates even online. Like, people could tell, I think. Like, when somebody reaches out, even if it's not in person, there's something about LinkedIn where it's like, hey, this person is like friendly. Like, even when you reached out to me, like, I could tell right away, hey, this person's serious about it. She's outgoing, she's friendly. When somebody else just sends me their CV and that's it, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll look at it, but I might honestly forget, or I might honestly ignore it because maybe I don't like them. And you know what? That's like for you, for the person reaching out, to make sure you approach it with the right strategy, because there's people out there that are just, they don't want to talk to you. They don't want you to send their CV. They're going to come get you if they need you. But you went the route of just being proactive and like hyper vigilant about reaching out and connecting.
And yeah, another thing I did was I even made like a spreadsheet of like my top 3 companies that I was interested in. And then I put like all of the recruiters that I had spoken to. And then I put like the date I spoke to them or the date I reached out and the next time I was going to follow up with them. So I didn't get them confused. And so I was just trying to be really like diligent about not contacting the same recruiter twice in one day, and just making sure that like, because I reached out to them for a reason. So I didn't want them to think that I don't know what company they're for, So I just made
Right.
sure to recognize their name with their company and who they were, so I could, you know, if they were to reach out to me, I knew exactly who they were. Last time I talked to them and stuff. So you get a lot of time on your hands when you're unemployed. So it was kind of a little. It just, I don't know. I was just like, I'm gonna make the best out of this, and I'm just would listen to your podcast every day, and I would just started like working out more and just trying to like not be depressed and all that kind of stuff, which I knew I would, fall into if I didn't do something. And so I was like, I'm not just going to be a CRC again. I want to be a CRA.
Yeah,
So I
because
just,
your goal was always CRA, right? Like from a
oh
few
yeah.
years back. So here we
Mhm.
go from like, and you know what? Like, and I don't want to speak for you, but tell me if this is probably right. If it wasn't for you being laid off, you probably would have been a coordinator for what, another couple years? Maybe longer?
Probably, I mean, and that's what a lot of people have been saying. It kind of was like a blessing in disguise, because I would have not tried this hard. I wouldn't have figured out the ins and outs. I wouldn't have done, I don't know. You just get really motivated. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And I'm still like, let's see, it's been like 5 days since I found out. And I'm still just so excited.
Wow. So how many, like, okay, before we get to like the interview process, how many recruiters or how many people on LinkedIn did you reach out to before you got like these interviews?
So, like in the past 2 years,
No, no,
or,
just like since you were laid off.
oh, I've still probably reached out to, oh my gosh, probably at least, I've probably talked to at least 25 different people.
Wow,
um,
okay, okay, good.
Probably, but the ones that I've done like phone screens with, I've only done with two people, and those are the two that I got the interviews with.
Wow,
And
two separate companies.
and the only
Wow.
two, I updated my resume and started sending it probably like a week after, after unemployment, once Ashley helped me. And then every single time I sent one, somebody was either said, we'd still love to talk, but we're not hiring right now, but we'll keep it, for later. Or they're like, oh, we are hiring. And they actually just answered me. And I was just like, oh, hey, because I've been invisible for the last 2 years. But
The
no.
smart ones are hiring, and I don't know if it's smart. I mean, it's not like the ones that are not hiring are not smart. I think they're smart in a different way. I think they're
Mhm.
looking at like a lot of these publicly traded companies are looking at their quarterly earnings. I said it yesterday to Monica. We had an interview. I said that for everything, there's usually a good reason and the real reason. All right, and like I used the example of Walmart. Like I bought a smoke detector at Walmart last weekend. Well, it didn't work for my house, so I took it back. Well, Walmart's return policy right now is unless it's from the gardening section, we don't accept any returns, which doesn't make any sense to me because we don't want to contaminate customers. Like, we can't restock it. So to me, that's their good reason. I mean, nobody's going to argue with that. Like, but their
Right.
real reason is probably, I suspect, quarterly earnings because they're getting hit, right? So
Right.
like
That's
same thing
true.
with these CROs, like they're furloughing. That's the good reason is, hey, things have slowed down. But anyone in the industry knows things actually haven't slowed down. Like you're gonna be so busy, Katie, like in June, July, August, it's gonna be unbelievable how busy you're gonna be. And they know this, and they know right now for these smart ones hiring, they can get the best people like that have been laid off.
I know, and that's a lot of people. I'm thinking about people who expect to go back to their job. Well, those companies, they might lose them because they find better options, better
They
offers.
will lose them. It's happened to like at least three other people I know.
Wow, yeah.
And then Monica too, the same thing. Okay, so these two different uh, companies interviewed you. Were
Mhm.
their interview processes similar? Like, what did they ask you? Because they knew you were a coordinator, right? So how did you tweak your CV? Because when like coordinators, when they want to be CRAs, I always tell them, hey, like think about what CRAs do. I'm sure you review your colleagues' work as
Mhm.
even though you're a coordinator, in that moment, you're actually a CRA, right? So how are you translating that to your CV? So I'm sure you did things like that. Did you update your CV with those kind of things?
Yeah, I did a lot of things where I would use a lot of keywords with, especially like um, talking about how I would just be in charge of the regulatory binders, like making sure all the, CVs, IATAs, all those things were in line because those are things that CRAs check,
That's
So,
right.
and trainings, making sure everybody had their trainings done. So I did kind of angle my CV more towards like a CRA,
Yep.
so, and that's what I tried to talk about in my interviews as well. About how I just know that because I've been a coordinator for so long, I know what to expect at each site. And so I just feel confident that I could be a CRA
Were
without.
the interviews hard?
They were, but a lot of them were they were kind of just on the spot questions. A lot of them were the behavioral questions. So it was kind of like sometimes you just had to just, what I did was I just prepared different experiences, like had them all written down. And so when they would ask me, I'd be like, oh, I already wrote this one down. I got an answer for that. So I had time to kind of figure out. That's another thing that was on my side was time. So I was very prepared for both of them. And yeah, they were hard, but they were, you know, they were pretty good. I felt
Did
kind of like they were like since like they knew I didn't have experience as a monitor, so that was on the table. So they just asked a lot of what if questions. So
so did they ask like questions like what did you do as a coordinator in this situation? Or did they ask like as a CRA if you're presented with this, what would you do? Or both?
Both. A lot of them, though, were things like they were like, walk me through what you would do, most importantly, if you were going to monitor a site and you only had 2 hours. What would be the most important thing?
Good one.
And so I had to say, knowing being a coordinator for so long, I know that the biggest is patient safety and informed consent forms. So I was like, we'll go through the informed consent forms and IP accountability, just things like that. And she was like, oh, all right, like check, just kind of things like that, wanting to make sure what's important, like, kind of mirror it to a CRA world.
Good for you. So the whole interview was pretty much like that, right? Like just asking you questions.
Like what I would do and stuff like that.
I remember because I'm a contract CRA also, and like when I got interviewed for this job I didn't get, but it was an oncology position. Since
mm,
then, I've gotten other oncology positions, so I'm okay with that. But at the time, I didn't have oncology experience, and I mean, I was telling you, I was scared for my students after that interview because I'm like, here I am, like 12 years in this industry, and they were just like, I was nervous. They were
mm,
asking me question after question. They weren't even letting me breathe. They were like, "What did you do in an IP excursion if it's not refrigerated?" And then I would answer. They wouldn't give any feedback. They would just hit with the next one, the next one, the next one. It was like they were waiting for me to not be able to answer something.
right,
And I
exactly.
was like, man, my students, like, they don't have the experience. Like, we need to change our curriculum. So we actually changed what we teach. We changed the internship approach now. That's much more hands-on, much more practical, because that's what they care about. But like for you, you had nothing really to worry about because you knew all the stuff you were talking about when you were at the site.
Right. But I still just didn't have that one, that's my main thing that I always struggled with is every CRA position says must have 6 months to a year experience minimum. And it's like, well, how can you ever be a CRA if you don't become one, because you don't ever have that experience. So I had to prove to them that,
Well, that's where it's blurry because as a senior, you said you were a senior coordinator, right?
yeah, well, I mean, I was a certified clinical
Oh,
research coordinator,
certified. Okay, good. So you got the ACRP and everything?
which that helped a lot too. They said that was preferred. So, I mean,
Very
hopefully.
good. So there you have it, guys. Like, get that ACRP thing. I keep telling you as soon as you can. It usually takes like 2 or 3 years, right, to even qualify for that test.
Right. Yeah. Hmm.
So that was good. That's really good. Okay, so basically, how many interviews were there for each company? Like just one, and they loved you so much they offered you on the spot?
No. So they both started with a phone screen. And then, well, the second one was a phone screen and then a Skype or a WebEx interview. And then I was supposed to hear back from the hiring managers, but I didn't.
Hmm.
So that one didn't work out. That oncology experience you're talking about, but I didn't have that, and they wanted that,
They wanted that.
which you really is really important that you're putting that into your academies.
Yes, thank
Very
God.
important, seriously. And then the other one was just a phone screen, and then I did a phone or video interview with the hiring manager, and then I heard back 2 days later. So
Wow,
that was
no
quick.
kidding.
Yeah, it was
And
all
they know that, the best CRAs, in my opinion, are former coordinators. Because you have empathy. You have empathy. You know what the PIs are dealing with. You know the PIs. You know how it really is with PIs. And CRAs that have never worked at a site have no freaking clue, Katie. They have
mm-hmm.
no idea. So you're going to have the best of both worlds because you've been at the site level. You understand the coordinator workload. You're going to understand the soft skills needed to convince the coordinator. Say, hey, I understand you're seeing 5 patients today, and I'm asking you all this stuff, and there's another CRA in the other room asking you other things, but this is what I need right now. This is
Right.
extremely important. I want to get this off of my action item. All right, so help me out, or something like that, right? But like CRAs that have never been in that situation have no idea, and they don't know what the other person's feeling. Like they don't know how busy that coordinator is. They don't know what that PI has just done during the day. So yeah, I think you're gonna be amazing, CRA.
Thanks. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited. And that's definitely so true because there's so many times where there's just, I'm going to try not to be too much of a needy monitor, because there's some monitors that just expect to have all of my time.
Just
And
don't lose it. Don't lose the touch you had with the sites. Because
I
I'm
know.
telling you, I do both. Like, I'm mostly at the site level, but occasionally I'm a contract CRA. And when I go to the site, every now and then I almost forget. I almost forget what the site is wanting to do. And then, like, I kind of become too much of a monitor. So then I have to
Mhm.
bring it back a little bit because, I understand. But it's very easy because when you're a CRA, you're going to have all these reports and you're going to need to finish it, and you're going to get that tunnel vision, and you need that. I mean, how else are you going to get your report done without that? But you need to also have the empathy, or else you're going to start losing the sites. They just won't respond anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's true. Because I know how horrible and stressful it can be being a coordinator with multiple studies and monitors on your back. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So you have the empathy. Did they mention that at all? Like, hey, it's great that you're a coordinator.
I mean, one of them did. They said, I know you don't have the experience as a monitor, but it sounds like because of your experience that you would know what to do as equivalent to having 2 years of monitoring experience. So they actually like kind of made that equivalent, which was pretty awesome, because I was like, thank you. I promise I know what
Very
I can
good.
do. So
Very good.
it's just crazy. I went like 2 years without even getting an interview, and I've literally probably applied, and I'm not even kidding, at least 200, 250 positions. I'm not even kidding. So for the last 2 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Jeez,
But then I changed my resume and I changed my tactics, and
change the resume, change your tactics. That definitely works. I also think the market worked in your favor because there's a lot. We are in startup mode in research, and they know in June, July, August, which is not too far from now,
right.
they're not going to have enough CRAs to monitor all these studies. And
Mhm.
have you seen on clinicaltrials.gov all the new coronavirus studies?
Oh, I
I mean,
know.
those just are brand new studies that came out of nowhere. Guess what? Those studies need CRAs also.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And nobody has coronavirus experience. So
I know.
what?
It's true. It's a good point. But yeah, I start June 1st, and then they said that it'll be like a month, and then I'll get assigned to my specific trial, protocols July.
Good for
So
you. Good for you. Are they gonna be? Did they tell you that they're gonna have like shadowing? Is there like a training program for new CRAs?
so this company doesn't exactly do that. It's more like they said I'll co-monitor until they feel comfortable, so that'll be like a month of orientation training kind of
Okay.
stuff, and then I'll co-monitor for a couple weeks to a month till I feel comfortable.
Beautiful. Did they tell
Yeah,
you what indications you're gonna do?
they said they weren't sure, but I think it's going to be mostly CNS
Ah,
type stuff.
that's my area right there. That's what our sites do. Very
Mhm.
good. We gotta stay in touch, Katie.
Yeah, for sure.
We
And then the
definitely gotta
other
stay in
thing they were
touch.
hiring for was, of course, oncology, which I don't have experience in.
They're
So that's
always
kind
hiring.
of, yeah.
Oncology is always hiring. Unfortunately,
If,
unfortunately.
if I could go back in time, I would somehow take some type of job, even if it was for 6 months, as an intern, as something with oncology, because you could not go wrong with that. So that's true.
So, as we wrap up, okay, thank you so much for sharing. And the
Mhm.
link to your LinkedIn will be under this video or in the show notes. Connect with Katie because she connected with other people from previous interviews. Good things happened. So, if
Mhm.
you connect with her from this interview, good things may happen, but you also have to apply yourself. Okay?
Mhm.
So, what advice do you have for somebody right now who maybe just got laid off or furloughed?
Just to not give up. Don't do what everybody assumes you're going to do, and just be. You just got to turn around to a good thing. Apply yourself and take. Yeah, just that's what I did all day, every day. Just about. I was just sitting on LinkedIn and then updating my resume, and yeah,
So when you say
just
all day,
don't
every
give
day,
up.
like, can you let these people know, like, what you actually mean? Is that hyperbole or is that like for real?
Well, so I would spend probably a couple hours a day listening to like your podcast, or listening to
Yes.
something that was like something with the clinical research industry,
Right,
something. And then
right.
I would spend like some time, like for myself, hanging out with my dogs or doing a good workout. And then I would go back to LinkedIn and I would like literally probably message, like write down a list of like people to message and connect with, and then but then people would respond back to me, so then I would get back on my phone. So I literally feel like it was all day. But it was basically just you have to dedicate at least 2 to 3 hours. I would say like a good 1 to 2 hours a day on
See?
LinkedIn recruiting.
And that's real, like real work too. Now,
Mm-hmm.
being that you were at the site level for so long, were you ever in charge of like hiring other coordinators at that site, or like were you ever involved in that process?
I was I've been involved before where somebody would have a second interview and then they would meet with me and I would kind of ask them questions and go over what, you know, the job there entailed and,
Okay.
they kind of, but
I'm asking because there are a lot of people right now that want to work at a site, want to intern at a site. And
mm,
I always tell them because they eventually want to be a CRA like you, but they understand starting at the site level. I tell them, look, sites need two things. Okay, they need patients and they need studies. If you can learn how to do one of those two things, if not both, which site is going to say no, you can't work here for free and get us studies? Like there's just
right.
not going to happen.
And there's so many study coordinators like myself who just kind of got burnt out of the recruiting process of recruiting patients, and you don't need clinical research experience at all to recruit. And if you can just like that is so vital. Intern, just to call patient,
You
just to
see?
ask people to if they're interested in being in the study, because that's stuff that coordinators that have been doing it a while just get tired of,
So give me the real answer and we'll wrap up. I appreciate you being on so much. This is going to help so many people. Let's pretend you are still at that site and there's no coronavirus right now, okay? So somebody comes up to you and with their CV at your site, they just walk in and they say, "Hey, Katie, like I listen to Dan's podcast. I know that sites need studies, and I've actually already gone on clinicaltrials.gov and I have these 100 studies and I've already applied. Like there's no PI. Obviously, I didn't know who the PI was, but I applied to potentially get these studies. Would that person be given a chance? I want the real answer. Don't just say yes because I want to hear yes. Like, what would you say?
Well, first of all, I would be shocked that they took the initiative to do
Yeah.
look at clinicaltrials.gov and all of the studies. It's pretty amazing. But yes, that's like the number one thing is getting studies and getting patients and getting, it's just quantity, just getting, that's where I hate to say it, but that's where the money comes from.
That's
So
right.
you can car salesman it up. I mean, you can do it. You just got to be willing, and then you start learning more about clinical research in depth and get to know all the specifics. But
That is
oh, yeah,
excellent.
for sure.
So, guys and gals, reach out to Katie, okay?
Yeah.
And she'll be on LinkedIn, and she's here. She's a nice person, as you can see, and she's gonna be, she's willing to network with you guys. So make it count. This is what LinkedIn's all about.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Katie, so much.
Thank
We'll
you
do a
so
follow
much.
up. We'll do a follow up like in 6 to 12 months. Okay.
Awesome. I
Uh,
couldn't have done it without you. Seriously.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It means a lot to me. And stay in touch for sure. Okay.
Absolutely.
And then thank you everybody for watching and listening, and we'll catch y'all later. Bye bye.